to the February 11th meeting of the Newmarket Conservation Commission. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Sue, are you ready to do the roll call?
I am. Patrick Reynolds.
Here.
Chris Blackstone. Here. Jeff Goldnoff.
Present.
Sam Kenny.
Present.
Melissa Sharple. Here. Juliana Tyson.
Here.
Dave Bell.
Here.
Megan Bradak.
Present.
Melissa Wilbur.
Here.
Okay. I don't believe we have any members of the public here tonight for comments, or we don't have any pending hearings or permits or anything like that to review. So I'm going to leave that. And we'll go on to the approval of the minutes from our meeting on January 13th. Did everyone get a chance to review the minutes? And are there any suggested edits?
I've made my suggestions known to Sue.
Oh,
We have to get it in first, so we have to do a first, second, and comment.
okay, so do you want to read the edits that you've got?
No, we have to get the minutes in first. We have to get them approved and then seconded and then comment.
Oh, okay, sorry. All right. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second? Okay. All in favor? Oh, sorry. All right. Comments?
Melissa got in touch, and I wanted to make something a little more clear. From the bottom of page 1 to page 2, where it is a sort of a quote directly from the planning board minutes.
Mm-hmm.
The previous month, starting with the applicant asked for a waiver of the on the excavation permit to be changed from 3 to 5 years. And then I will drop that down, and then right after that, it will say another new paragraph line. Melissa Sharples recommended that we table discussion of this item until the next meeting members agree. Just clarifying.
Okay.
Okay?
Any questions about those comments? Okay. Everyone okay? Is there a motion to approve the minutes with those comments?
Just raise your hand. No. We'll approve.
Melissa? Oh, just okay.
Yeah, now you just vote.
Okay. All right.
I abstain. Okay.
Luckily, I'm wearing a mask, so any embarrassment is well hidden. Okay. Ellen Snyder could not be here tonight, so I will go ahead and run through the financial report. Okay. Start out with the balance sheet. The current balance of the conservation fund and including the Shanda Park Fund as well is $163,683.95. So there's that. I'll pass that along in case anyone saw that, need to see that. So there's the balance. Expenditures, current total expenditures are $1,601.84, and that includes a site visit from CELT and our contracted services. Pass that along. And then on our general fund balance, we currently have $798.16. Okay. And let's see, what else is here? We haven't had any revenues come in at this point, other than interest on the balance. All right. Couple other things. I think I started passing those around. There's a copy of Great Bay Magazine. There's the Dodds report on the Dodds property. That's done by CELT every year. There's an easement at the Dodds farm, and that's the property that runs partially along Grant Road and partially along Neal Mill Road. So there's their report that they do every year and send us. And there was also a card in here that basically talks about the addition to the Pecasset Greenway, obviously, that we're all familiar with, the 32 acres in Newmarket. And this was sent out before they had received the grant funding that they did end up receiving from the water drinking fund and LCHIP. So other than that, there wasn't any other mail. My report is pretty limited. There really isn't. One of the follow-up issues we had to talk about was to talk about the change in the gravel pit permit, and that has been finalized, and so that there's really not much to comment on there for us. Fortunately, you know, there's some miscommunication between us and the planning board, and we weren't aware of that change, but it's happened, and hopefully the new owners will provide a good site plan to the planning board. The other thing I want to remind everybody is the town election will be coming up. I believe it is
Thank you.
second Tuesday in March. Does that sound correct?
It's March 8th.
March 8th. So yeah, that's the second Tuesday in March. So March 8th.
Verified.
Let's see. Everything else is on the agenda. So we'll go ahead and go to committee and subcommittee reports. We'll start out with the Riverfront Advisory.
Yeah.
Sam?
Let's see, we last met like mid-January. Our last meeting was January 31st. At that time, we were briefly joined by Steve Fournier, town manager. Really the purpose of that, and the purpose of mostly that meeting was setting the stage for this month's meeting, which is scheduled for Monday the 28th at 4 o'clock. At that time, the committee and a few of the town department heads will be getting a presentation from the UNH and DES design group that's been working on looking at basically sustainable park upgrades to Shanda Park. So everyone is invited to that. The meeting is officially posted. I think it is supposed to be in council chambers upstairs on the 28th, again at 4 o'clock. But we'll be joined by, I think, like 6 to 8 representatives of the state and UNH to present that to us for sort of an open comment session for the most part about general layout, thoughts, challenges, things like that. So hopefully it'll be a productive conversation. By no means is it a final plan or anything. It basically will wrap up grant work the town has benefited of and through that program. But then it will really just be kind of the end of that and the start of a new phase for the town to initiate. So that next meeting, again, the 28th.
Okay. Thanks. Town Council.
Things have been very quiet. We had deliberative session on Saturday. Just if anyone is interested, the budget is moving forward to Election Day, so on the 8th. We do have two bills that are going to be two resolutions, sorry, in the first reading this coming week about the Tucker Well project, just as an update for everyone. So that means it's going to be almost 3 weeks before we're actually voting on it. But just wanted to let you know that those were coming up. The first is just about moving forward with one of the bids on the project, and then the other is around funding dredging and filling that needs to happen. They do have a permit from DES for that, so the vote isn't on whether to do that, but to okay the funds to do so. But I can share that DES permit if folks are interested to see that information.
Is that to cross over to get to the well area?
Yes, yeah, it says they need to do some dredging of wet meadow, wetland for improvements of the drinking water capacity of the well site, construction of an access road, installation of a culvert, period. I said that with a question mark. Culvert.
Okay. Any movement on the change in status of the Neal Mill Road portion that's still listed as a Class 6 road?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's been continuously brought up, and we keep getting kind of we'll get back to you. So I will bring it up again.
Okay.
No, I do not have any updates on it.
Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Planning Board.
Just to speak to the Neal Mill Road thing, it did come up at the planning board meeting the other night, and Scott said that the town administrator was going to get back on that. Was his understanding.
Well, getting back.
So one thing, there's a few big things that we're working on. It's the MS4 permit, upgrades to our stormwater regs and site plan regs in regards to stormwater. And I think the Conservation Commission was involved in that years ago. I'm relatively new to it, and it's a very large set of regs. It's the two together is the 40 to 50 page range. So I don't want to try to speak to it directly. But so where those are at is they've been through technical review, which I was on at one of the meetings, and they haven't really been discussed in their current form with the full planning board yet. And so we're having a workshop on February 22nd at 7 p.m. and asked if I can invite members of the Conservation Commission, which you obviously can come to that. So so the TRC had met with Bill Cherry twice over the last 2 months. I missed this week's meeting of the TRC, but so it's hopefully getting near final. So at the meeting on the 22nd, the full board will kind of discuss it for the first time since I've been on the planning board to try to get it moving along and finalized. And at that meeting, we'll also be discussing some proposed changes to some zoning language and some potential rezoning of some lands at the north end of town, similar to kind of the main. I'm bad with the zones at the moment. I think it's an M2 district, and extending it in the north area to kind of encourage a little more commercial development. As the gateway projects, we had that presentation on Newmarket gateways, and this is kind of trying to equalize the northern gateway of the town kind of more as the southern gateway has been put forward, and then some other zoning changes around this part of town, the more developed downtown area. So those two items will be discussed at that meeting on the or workshop on the 22nd. And there has been one development. I had to recuse myself from the discussion, so I don't want to get into it too much, but Conservation Commission might be interested in kind of reviewing plans or the pit out on Route 152, not the one that's further out toward the end of Ash Swamp Road. It used to be a pit. It looks like shrub and scrub these days. Just on the west side of the wetland before Ash Swamp Road. There has been a proposal before the board the last couple of months, and it's continued to next month as well. I believe the plans, if they're not in our agenda packet, which I don't think the most recent versions were. They should be for our next meeting anyway. That's one thing I should actually mention about the MS4 stormwater regs. If you would like to attend that meeting, I would suggest, they're not up there, I just checked, they're not up on our agenda yet. They will be on the agenda for the workshop. Posted as soon as they get up there, I can email the board and let everyone know, or the commission, that they're up. Because if you do wish to review them prior to the meeting, it's a lot to review. So it's not just, oh, I'll sit down and read them for a half hour. It's a time investment. The reason I mentioned the pit or the other development up on 152 is just because it is adjacent to a prime wetland. That might be why the commission might be interested in having a look. But again, I had to recuse myself from the discussion, so I should talk about that one.
Okay.
Any further?
All right.
That's all I have at the moment.
Thanks, Jeff.
Sure.
Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about is the Wigan Farm invasive plant control. So we did get an estimated cost from Rockingham County Conservation District. This is, again, just to remind you guys, this is to treat about 3 acres of using a low impact herbicide, low volume foliar techniques. So the estimate is to perform invasive species control utilizing these low impact herbicides. They'll be targeting the knotweed, the buckthorn, bittersweet, burning bush, barberry, and other state-listed invasive species. They'll take care not to minimize damage to non-target plants. It's a flat fee estimate for a single treatment. We probably would have to look at treating it again, just to put that out there. This is not something that can be funded by an outside grant. We're going to have to pay for this out of the conservation fund, and the cost from the Rockingham County would be $3,190. Does anyone have any questions on that before go any further?
I do. I'm interested in this because of the different growth rates of the plants, as everybody would be. So it's one trip 3K, or a trip for the foliar application on these types of plants, which might not be needed at the same time as these types of plants, but one treatment in spite of there being maybe more than one trip to the site necessary.
It says a single treatment. It's very precise in saying that. So I would assume that that means it's a one visit. But unfortunately, our expert is not here tonight.
Right.
Ellen would be able to answer that question precisely, but everything that's on this document I was provided says a single treatment. So I'm going to assume that they do that in one visit. Because
Well, some of the plants would be not yet have a place of foliar treatment. Well, it's Tracy. She must know when she's going to come, and some might be target super prime time, and some might be not exactly prime time, but they've had great success at some other properties in the county.
right. I'm
But the wording is a
assuming
little-
this is going to be further along, a little bit further along in the year. We're not talking about like April or March. We're talking about probably May, June.
Well, no, they know what they're doing. I just thought the wording was weird that it was one treatment or one trip. That's okay.
I mean,
Foliar ones are the ones that you're gonna not inject something in a plant. It's a. Oh, I thought you said what is a.
No, they're talking about literally a on the foliage spray.
That's what they're calling it.
yeah.
Knotweed and stuff?
But knotweed you would do.
I thought you cut and paint the stems.
Yeah.
Maybe they've changed there in the fall, so it draws it.
You want to kill the rhizomes and the roots and stuff.
Yeah, maybe they've changed methodology since then.
Yeah, I mean, the reason we were using them is they're just the best expert that's also affordable, I believe, is probably the best way to describe them.
We're super ecologically conscientious, that's one thing. That's believable.
Okay. Any other questions?
Even with the second trip, it's still 6-ish K-ish, right?
You mean if they did a second trip
Yeah.
this year? Well, yeah, I think what they're really saying is that you would do this on successive years. So
Yeah.
they would come back next year, and then they would come back next year.
Slowly beat it up, yeah.
So I think it would be a multi-year best practice is what they're already saying in this.
Yeah,
But it's only including the first year.
thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, and I'm guessing part of the reason they would do that is because that's based on this year's prices, and next year's prices will go up.
Golly
'Cause
knows how much.
We know
right?
that is for sure. So again, this would have to come out of the conservation fund, and so yeah, it is probably realistic to think about it as a commitment that may, in the end, be like $10,000 or something like that over a 3-year period.
Over a few years.
Yeah, to truly get the results we want to see.
Mm-hmm.
So.
What is our threshold for needing to get quotes again, though? Isn't it right around there?
Yeah.
I thought it was 5K we could vote on without
Okay,
it.
awesome.
Well, maybe I'm making that. Do you know what can we do without having to get? I thought it was 5, but I might be making that
I
up.
know I remember it. I thought it had moved up from what it was a few years ago. A few years ago, it was like only like $1,500, I think.
Oh,
But I think it's moved up since then, but I'm just not sure how much. But the problem with this is, I don't even know how many other groups do this. Getting a second quote might be difficult, but what I would suggest then is that we could approve up to spending up to $3,200
yeah.
for applying low-impact herbicides to treat this property. And if we can find other bids, we will get them.
I think it's important to get on their dance card, because the other
Yeah.
thing that's going to happen is everybody's onto this,
Yeah.
and they've done some great PR about what Rockingham County Conservation District does.
Right.
And I'd hate to have us dilly-dally and not get dibs on some of their time and material.
Right. So
Could it-
that would be my motion. My motion that is to approve spending up to $3,200 for herbicide application at Wigan Farm. And if we can find other opportunities to get that bid, we will. But if they're the only game in town, I want to make sure we get them.
Second.
Okay? Any more
Yeah.
discussion?
Can I ask another couple?
Yep.
Do you know, so it's the Rockingham Conservation, do you know what herbicide they're gonna use?
They don't say here that I see.
It just said low impact in her
Just
quote,
said
right?
low impact. But I don't. Oh, you know what it does say here, though? It does say cut stem / basal bark.
Yeah, there you go. That makes
So
more
they
sense.
do have that on there. Covers mixing, travel, mileage, and herbicide and cleanup. But it doesn't say, Jeff, what chemical they use. But I'm sure we could call, or Ellen would know. And I can send her an email after this and ask her to send that along. Any other questions, comments? Okay, all in favor? Okay. All set? Okay.
No, close? Sorry, nay? Sorry, I have to vote against.
Heron Point, Ellen has submitted everything. to the Lamprey River Advisory Committee. She will be coming, I believe, to the next meeting to present the project, and it should be voted on at that point, so I expect it will get approval, which is great, because that funds our kiosk. The one question, which I think you answered, Melissa, but I don't really know, it was about the QR code. Do we have a QR code of our own?
Not that I know of. No.
Is there any objection to, since we don't have a QR code, the Lamprey River Advisory Committee was asking if they could have their QR code on the kiosk, which would take people to their website.
Why are you staring at me?
I don't know. I thought you were going to say something.
Well, I was gonna, and then I thought that I'll just sit here.
Okay, all right.
I
No.
don't like that idea.
Okay, well, that's what I'm looking for, is,
Yeah.
if you don't like that
I-
idea.
it's-
I agree with you. I think it's a little confusing.
I think it's confusing. I think it's not a turf war. It doesn't rise to that, but it does rise to who is the crux of the support owed to.
Okay,
And then the secondary question would also be practical, like, we know in generating a QR code that it's gonna be some tech support required. We know that we can keep it updated the way we would like to as the Conservation Commission
Right.
relative to the property, rather than the other organization, as great as they are, housing the QR code and updating it to things that they might then direct, which aren't really with the property and our relationship in mind.
okay. So, I think that's
I agree.
a good response, and I will let them know. No QR code. But we're happy for them, if they want to put their own website on there, I don't have
Sure.
a problem with that. That might be a
Absolutely.
good compromise. They did just spend a lot of money on upgrading their website, so it's really nice. If you want to go out and see their beautiful new website, it's excellent.
Duly noted.
I can say their investment is paid off. You know what? I realize we have this on there twice. We have Wigan Farm Invasive. I think the other reason we might have that on there is that one of the things that we had talked about was perhaps planning to do a work day at Wigan Farm to deal manually with some invasives there. So I think it would be a good idea to start thinking about that and maybe get even a date out there. My recommendation is we don't want to go too late into May. One year we had Serve with Liberty out there doing it it was literally like the first or second week of May, and it was 80 degrees out there, and it was so hot that we had to call it quits at 2 o'clock because people were looking like they were going to keel over. So my recommendation would be to do it in early May, like on a Saturday, and kind of do it similar to how we did Heron Point. Invite people from the community to come, have the tools there, have a demonstration, and then try and get as many people to go out and hit invasives as possible there. So we could get some of the other areas that won't be touched by the spraying or haven't been touched by the mowing that's happened out there. There's a lot of other invasives all over the property that we could easily tackle.
Is there a school vacation week that falls late enough to work with that? It might be something good for people to get the kids out of the house or something like that.
If we did it on a Saturday still?
Yeah, or, just a school vacation week or something.
Yeah, it's usually the last week in April. Looking at Jeff.
Is that too
'cause
early?
Jeff's the only other person I know has.
My birthday's April
who
24th, and
has
it's always
kids.
got my
It's usually,
birthday in it.
The last week of April is when
February
April
vacation this year is messed up. It's like in March.
It's the
goes-
last
I know,
day.
that's February vacation,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I don't know if they changed
That's a good question. We can look, usually it's like,
The
it
30th.
can bleed into May a little bit, like, it can be like the first few days, the last few days of April and then the first few days of May. But, yeah, I agree, February vacation's really strange this year with how late it is.
Yeah, shifted other stuff, I'm not sure.
Okay, all right, but people seem to be in favor of doing a May work day, so I will come back to you guys with a date next time. Okay,
A work day with a workshop tutorial kind of thing on what to look for and how to
yes,
correctly pull it?
yes,
Okay.
we would provide, you know, what I would actually suggest is we might even go out the weekend before, the week before, and tie it off, tie a little ribbon, do stuff to identify things, because there's plenty of things like that you can do out there.
School vacation is the week of April 25th this year,
Okay,
according to the Newmarket School District calendar.
okay. So maybe, so that means if it starts that Monday, then Saturday would be April 30th?
The 30th.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it might be, we could even look at that date. It all depends on what kind of spring we're having, but I'll even look at that date. Okay, so one of the topics we were looking at were guest speakers for 2022. I was approached by Revision Energy, who is the official solar provider of the town of Newmarket. Megan, what does that mean exactly? Do you know?
Well, they were working with Energy Environment Committee on the Solarize Newmarket project, so they're partnering with the town to incentivize residential solar installations.
Okay. So they could come and do a presentation, not unlike the presentations we've had from Mr. Fox Composting or Castella Recycling. They would do a presentation on residential solar. They would talk about how it works, what are the incentives that are provided by the state and federal government, how does it work as far as like selling energy back to the grid, you know, what are the pros and cons, you know, basically kinds of all of that. Does that sound like an interesting presentation to you guys that you would be in favor of doing something like that? I told them 20 minutes, too, not like an hour-long presentation. 20 minutes is our sort of standard presentation.
I think that's interesting, and I would ask them to throw in a little component to help dispel the myths about what does a solar project do as far as creating some kind of a desert underneath it, if you have the standalone ones, like a solar farm, kind of a setup in your yard, and include a little bit in there about the runoff from it, because there's a lot of cultural discussions about why those things are negative, and I think Revision's done every solar company does a good job of explaining a little bit more about where did that thought come from and why is that thought pervasive, as well as now some of them are old enough to be in the recycle phase. So what happens to those pieces of glass and stuff when the thing is obsolete and being turned around and new ones are coming in? That, I think for conservation purposes, those are a couple of interesting things to include in a portion of the 20 minutes. They've got a lot of presentations going on in town about why and what are the incentives. And I think we could do some justice to the topic if we included the land and those environmental sides besides the financial side that they're presenting in so many ways.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like yes, so they will be our first guest speaker of the year, but we're looking for other guest speakers, so if anyone has any suggestions or any ideas, our big thing is we do like guest speakers that do not charge an honorarium. We are willing to work with them if they want to appear via Zoom. We can work with them on that. They can do presentations and you know, we can share them on the screen, etc. And, you know, usually topics would include things about conservation, wildlife, plants, you name it, or something in the natural world, usually.
I'll reach out to Jane Kelly at On the Wing in Epping.
Oh, okay. Yep, I know her.
They've been intaking quite a few raptors lately, so you know, I'd love to give her some attention.
That would be great, yeah. And I know she did that
She
release
did a
at
release
Wigan
of that
Farm.
barred owl last year, yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome.
I know, Patrick, you've been interested and mentioned numerous times about the things that you're interested in. That would be with the non-game fish and game expert, whose name escapes me right now, Matt Megacy. Rhymes with legacy. Matt Megacy could be really interesting, because he could talk to us about those things that you've mentioned as being interested. So do you want to see if Jane can do April, and I can see if we can have fish and game for May? Another really interesting one for plants is actually an attorney out of Grafton with the New Hampshire Conservation Law Foundation. Nate starts with a G. He's an attorney with Municipal Association. He always has an article in that big Town and Country magazine. That's great. He does conservation law. But his real passion is carnivorous plants that are native to New Hampshire in our bogs and on our wetlands.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, he's a great speaker too. And that's helpful to us when we talk about like what plants are growing in the wetlands, so. I can find it right now. I mean, I don't want to be impolite looking at my phone. I know his first name is Natch, last name starts with a capital G, but I can find him right now. With capital G is his last name? Yeah.
It would be nice if we could get things further out, that way we can promote them on our website.
Yeah. So you can do Jane, see if Jane's available for April. If she's not, let me know. I'll see if Nate could do May or June. And then the other one would be Matt Megacy for the one that Nate can't do. And that gets us to July, if somebody has a great idea for July. Dark Sky Foundation could be interesting. Anybody in that aspect, because that's when people are looking at meteor showers and those kind of things.
Yeah, there was also, there's a guy in Massachusetts who's become the foremost expert on coyotes in New England. I was interested in seeing if we could get, I don't know how difficult he would. I'm thinking he could be appearing by Zoom.
Yeah.
But I read an article about him, and he's pretty interesting. Okay, well, great. Those sound like some good ideas that we have coming up. The next meeting is March 11th, so that's when revision will show up, just so everybody has that. One other thing that Chris pointed out to me that was an email, and I don't know if everyone got it. I believe the name of the group is the Coastal Watershed.
Coastal Adaptations Work Group, CAW.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
They have a bunch of things going on, but one of the things I thought was interesting is that they're doing a training program that you can apply for. You would take a certain amount of courses online at home, and then you would go a couple weekends, and the idea is to train you sort of on as a coastal resiliency kind of expertise. Does that sound like a good description of what that is about?
Yep.
I think that's going to be really popular and something that would be, I'm going to try and see about doing it, because I think it would be really topical thing, whether you're, on the Conservation Commission or, planning board, whatever, that kind of training with what they're predicting is going to happen as far as, the need for resiliency in these areas. So we need the training, so.
Especially with Sam's group, hopefully moving forward.
Yeah.
Do you know what their website is, so we can
The
just
acronym
sort of
is
do a little
CAW,
I will
Coastal.
forward it to you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And read through the so many people were trying to sign up today, it crashed.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so they're getting some responses there. Okay, I don't have anything else. And if there isn't anything else, then I would ask if there's a motion to adjourn. Unless,
The website is www.nhcaw.org
oh, and dates.
for New Hampshire Coastal Adaptation Work Group.
All right, I'll
Okay.
promote it on Facebook.
All right,
Uh,
so.
Do it.
Do you know when the end date is? Is it March 1? Or is it March 31? I think it's March 31. So, people with expiring terms include myself, David, and Chris. So I believe at the end of next month, our terms would expire. If you want to be reappointed, you would just need to go to the office of the town administrator and fill out a form, and then it will be submitted to the council for approval. So, but yeah, again, after next meeting, April meeting, we'll start off with elections for officers. Now, we'll have to see if there's a motion to adjourn. A motion to adjourn meeting?
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second? All in favor?